Hi everyone, thanks for joining today's event. We will be discussing construction project lifecycle within the lens of the construction market. So we'll cover off on some of the top challenges construction and building material companies face and solutions NetSuite and Appficiency's construction solution provides to solve those key issues. So my name is Spencer Douglas and I'll be kicking off today's event. I am currently the marketing co-op at Appficiency. I'm in charge of running webinars and helping with social media and doing any marketing work with my marketing director. So I have with me today Johnny Than, our principal and CEO at Appficiency, Morteza, who is the director of delivery and a seasoned construction expert, who will also be joined by Hamid, who is a strategic business consultant and other construction SME here at Appficiency. For those of you who aren't familiar, NetSuite is the first cloud ERP founded over 20 years ago. NetSuite has more than 29,000 customers in more than 200 countries across the globe. Also introducing Appficiency, who provides NetSuite consulting, implementation, and integration services. Appficiency has several construction solutions and has worked with clients in the land developer, general contractor, subcontractor, and engineering design service space. So a few housekeeping items before we get started here. Today's event will be recorded. All lines will be muted. We will leave time for questions at the end, so please feel free to submit your questions in the chat throughout, and I will moderate them, and we will get back to you after the webinar. So with that, I'll hand it over to Johnny.
I'm very excited to join you today. My name is Johnny Than. I'm the CEO and founder of Appficiency, and joined here with me today is Morteza Husseini. Morteza is going to talk today. We're going to be interviewing Morteza on exactly what it means to make a market in NetSuite, and specifically to make a market in construction. My background includes over 14 years at NetSuite, with the NetSuite platform, working on everything from verticals in manufacturing to advertising, media, and publishing, as well as e-commerce. I've worked on over 18 ERPs and 18 software platforms in my life, and I've had the distinct pleasure of creating all kinds of solutions on them. Nothing quite as ambitious as construction, perhaps, but today I'd like to share with all of you how, with Morteza's expertise, we can do that together. Morteza, do you want to just give a quick intro of yourself?
Absolutely. Thanks, Jenny. So my name is Morteza Husseini. I started actually with working in construction for 14 years, and then I moved into the challenging world of IT and software. So in the past 7 years, I implemented over 350 cycles of implementation for construction companies.
Thanks very much, Morteza. So for a lot of us, the concept of market making doesn't make a lot of sense. So let me make some sense of it first for everybody here. The concept of market making is to take an entire business solution, not just one piece of the business, but everything that business needs to do, and provide a solution, whether it's one application or two, whether it's 42 steps or 5,000 steps, and make sure that all of those physical world steps that happen for a business can be replicated in the software where obviously it makes sense. If you do that, you've made a market, because now what the customers already do can continue, but now they can do it in a more efficient fashion, or perhaps they can do it in a way that they couldn't even do it before. And now common practice is no longer best practice. Best practice is the new practice. And so when I look at verticals, and when we look at market making at Appficiency, we look at it as solving the entire footprint of the problem. Now that said, not all verticals are the same size, and not all verticals have the same amount of variation. Can you tell us a little bit, Morteza, how big is the construction vertical? Is it really just one thing? Is it many things? Does it change place to place? How does all of that look like?
Absolutely. So typically, we have more than 10 different types of construction businesses and verticals. Today, we're going to focus on 3 of them and specify their needs, who they are, and what we can do for them. So self-performers, land developers, and designing firms. So self-performers are the companies that they technically hire by a customer, and they do the work with their own resources, labor, material, equipment. Land developers are the companies that they own the land. They act like an owner of the project, and then hire either self-performers, GC, and then they technically manage the entire construction process. And then we have designing firms that they are not involved with the execution of the construction, but they are actually attributing to the designing of the drawings and specs in order to start the execution.
Thank you very much. That helps me a little bit, but I'm still confused. The person who puts up the building, you know, we see that day to day on TV and in Hollywood. We see that as the person with the hard hat, the guy in the middle, but the guy in the middle is not standing like that. He's got, or she's got, a blueprints. They got some papers with them. So it feels like you're saying there's a designing firm, but we see somebody who's a land developer and a designing firm at once. Can you speak to me about what that separation really looks like?
Absolutely. So think about it this way. Land developer would hire the designing firm to come up with the construction drawing, and then they would hire the self-performer and then pass the drawing to the self-performers to execute the work. However, in every single project, you need to plan, execute, and monitor and control. So at any point of time, you might find a land developer with set of drawings in hand, checking the work of the self-performers. Or you might find the self-performers checking the drawings in order to execute the work. Or you might find the designing firm also involved in execution to clarify some issues related to their drawing.
I see. Thank you. So these are actually very different things that a business will do. Having worked with over 800 different customers, I can tell you the breadth of what you just covered in those few simple statements is very broad. We're talking everything from, you know, one person's managing 3 other subtypes of companies underneath them potentially. So let's go into each one if you don't mind. I'd like to understand better, and I think the audience would really appreciate to understand better what is the needs of each one of these types of companies. How do we understand their full functional footprint, and how does Appficiency make a market on something like that? So let's take a look first, if you don't mind, at self-performers. I think this, to me, is the easiest to understand. Anyone who's a homeowner, anyone who's had to call a plumber, to me, that's the self-performer. Maybe it's a big company, maybe it's a small company, but you know, when my toilet's stuck, I'm looking for someone who's going to finish that job right then and there. Can you tell me a bit about the self-performer needs?
Absolutely. So they would technically execute the project, right? So they are heavily rely on their own resources. They would heavily involve with purchasing material and inventory, because that's the meaning of self-performing, right? You have your own crew and you purchase your own material to do the job done. And then considering the amount of the resources, the activities that you have, you need to have detailed estimate and job costing in place to manage the entire project. So your example might be related to a only piece of work, which I would call it a subcontractor, or it could be related to a general contractor who is managing the entire project from A to Z, but with self-performing method, which means labor, material, equipment, your own resources technically.
Okay, great, thank you. That explains what they do, but that sounds pretty simple. You know, at the end of the day, the plumber gives me a bill, I pay the bill. What's so complicated about this? Why can't you use NetSuite out of the box?
Great question. So, yeah, it would be easy when you want to just spend 1 hour. It wouldn't be easy when you need to manage thousands of tasks within hundreds of projects at any point of time. And then you need to deal with thousands of people in order to do those tasks in terms of assigning them, make sure that they are on time, you hit your milestones, you are not out of cash flow, and you are actually making money. It's not like you budget for $100 and you're spending $200 and paying $100 out of your pocket. These are all the things that make this complicated, because NetSuite is a great tool in terms of having and giving you the foundation that you need, but you need to have some specific feature designed for construction. And that's what we did. So if I want to talk about what they need, the self-performers, they need to have bid management because they need to bid on their projects for the customer. They need to have procurement management to purchase the material that they need. Their billing and change order. So they are going to have a contract with a customer, and every month they need to bill according to that contract. So their change orders also would be like, hey, not every single project would go according to your initial plan. You cannot predict the future, right, 100% accurately. So change are happening. It's changing the scope, and so you need to consider that in your budget, consider that in your billing, and these are the things that make Appficiency so unique, because we understand the business, we design the product for the business, and you cannot simply do that with native NetSuite.
If you don't mind, Morteza, self-performers seem to have a wide range of size. Give me some idea of how big they are and how their needs change as their sizes change.
So it really depends on the type of the self-performer. So if you're talking about a subcontractor, it could be as simple as a company with one-man show who is making, I don't know, $200,000 per year. It's like good, right? For me as a one-man show. Or you can talk about a general contractor who is actually running those sophisticated projects, even a condo, or let's say building the houses for land developers. And we are talking about like over $100 million company easily.
Okay, now I get the complexity. So, one of the things that we noticed early on in the efficiency lifecycle when we built our material job costing product was that we actually didn't build it for construction first. We built it for a variety of industries across, of which self-performers were just one of them. And so we built the product to be highly, highly flexible. At the time, when I look back, that wisdom was not with the intention to service every type of construction company out there. But we used to say, and we still say today, our job costing product can measure raindrops in a bucket. If that's what you want to do to drive the rest of your progress billing, the rest of your change order management, talk to me about how important that flexibility is for a self-performer who's a GC, any of those types of work types and sub-construction company types. How important is that material job costing flexibility?
So I go back to what you just said. You said material job costing flexibility. So most likely that's the name like that you gave to the product, like, I don't know, 10 years ago. However, construction is not only about material. You have different components. You have your labor, material, subcontracts, equipment. And not only that, now you need to keep an eye on your budget, how much you have money in your hand, in your budget, how much you spend with your purchase orders, how much you paid or you receive invoices from your contractors, and then how much you bill your customer. All these things, consider the change order in between, and now seeing at any point of time, the big question in every single construction project is, am I going to make money or I'm going to lose money? Do I have enough cash flow or not? And at every single period of your project, this is the key question to be answered. And that's why this MJC can help us.
That's great. Thanks very much for that. Now, we talked about material quite a bit, but let's talk about it a bit more even. The self-performer uses material and inventory quite a bit. So are you telling me that they might track things like, a 2x4 in NetSuite? They might be tracking, their buy of aggregate or their buy of metal, framing, rebar, everything from grouting and tiling and tools. Is this really what happens for self-performer?
Yes, it is. That's the meaning of self-performing. And that's why here you see we said material and inventory. the bigger you are in terms of the variety of the material, the more likely would be you have an inventory, because there's no way to shoot all those materials to the job site. So you would keep them in inventory, you would get better prices from your suppliers, and then you have to transfer your items from inventory to the project, right?
I can already imagine the screens that you could use across a wide variety of NetSuite screens and situations. You know, you want to transfer to the job site, you can keep a custom location, you can keep a customer location, and you can do it either a fulfillment or inventory transfer. There's lots of options in NetSuite, and so I can see how they can all support that self-performer. Thank you very much for that. Let's talk next about a land developer, because this sounds pretty foreign, pretty different from a self-performer to me. Talk to me about a land developer. What do they do? How do they do it? What do we need from a software perspective to support these guys?
Perfect. Yeah, absolutely. So, like I said, they act as the owner of the project, right? So they don't have a customer. They are the customer. So what they do, which is like really unique to their business, first of all, they run one company per project. There is no other businesses that they run one company per project. So you have 100 jobs, you set up 100 legal entities. And by having 100 legal entities, now we understand that they are heavily involved with intercompany relationship, because one company might act as the vendor of the other company. And then now you think about the portfolio of your resources, that you share the resources among these different companies. And then they would employ the general or subcontractors to do the work for them. So that's a land dev structure. So what they need really, because they don't have a customer for their project, they need to have a CRM to manage the customer for their product of the project, which is a house that they build, right? I'm developing the land. I need to find a customer to sell the house that I'm building on that land, right? So CRM is important for them to manage their leads, prospects, and customers. Bid management is not that important from the customer perspective, but it's important from the vendor's perspective. Procurement management, most likely you go to this project, you will see 1 or 2 contracts. That's all they have. But in that contract, you will see everything, all their breakdowns would be in that contract, because they just hire one general contractor to do all the work, and then one design firm to design the project, right? So you definitely see 2 POs, that's it. However, the way that they need to send draw to the bank in order to get the money from the project, because we're talking about $1 million project, right? So either they need to pay out of their equity, or they need to get the loan from the bank. So they are not really billing anyone, they need to send a draw. And this would have GL impact, this would have so many other components that you need to think about. And they are not really having like, hey, this is my person completion. No, it's more of, this is my actual cost. These are all my backup documents that they need to send to the bank in order to be audited.
Thank you. That's great insight. But I don't hear job costing so much in there. Is the job the whole project? Is it all just financials? Tell me a little bit about that.
Absolutely. So job costing, I would say for them is even more crucial than the other type of the businesses. Why? Because not only they are going to take risk on hiring people, they are going to take risk on investing in the project. So at any point of time, it's crucial for them to understand what's going on in the project. How much I budgeted for, how much I lend, how much I lend from the bank, how much is my equity, am I going to be out of cash this month? Lots of complication and responsibilities. The only way that you can understand what's going on with your project is having the job costing. So,
great insight. Thank you very much, Murtaza. Let's go to our third type, which is really the designing firms. Talk to me about how a design firm, the traditional design firm to me is truly that hard to have, but I mean, nothing represents it better than the architectural drawings. So for a designing firm, that's using AutoCAD or Revit or something like that to design the building, the floor, the roof, whatever thing they are actually creating new, how do they use NetSuite to support that? And is there an integration point as well? Or is it just, should they completely go onto NetSuite?
So for designing first, of course, they need to rely on AutoCAD, but that's for producing their drawing. That's the product of the project. It's like I need to have a loader or grader on a job site in order to finish my project. That's the equipment that I need. Every single construction business, they need to have an ERP solution to run their business based on their core financial. And this should be integrated with the other aspects. So if I want to pick only one vertical in construction, that can be easily modified and run their business with native NetSuite, up to 70%, that would be designing firm. They don't have that much complexity that the land dev or self-performers have. However, they are also heavily involved with resource allocation. They don't need to purchase any material. They don't have sophisticated billing and change orders. However, they would need CRM, they would need bid management, they would need the labor job cost tracking and billing and change order, and of course, like all the other types of companies, they need accounting.
Wonderful. Thank you very much for that great rundown for land developers, designing firms, self-performers, who I just learned are also GCs. This is really, I think, very important for those that are looking to create solutions on the NetSuite platform, for those that want to run their business that they feel is unique on the NetSuite platform. First, it seems like you have to understand the business. Then you understand how each set or piece of the software can support each of those functions that the business naturally does. So let's talk a little bit about this concept of the golden flow. At Appficiency, we've had this concept for a while. We're not the first company that came up with it, but we're certainly the ones that have taken it the furthest. The golden flow to us is really, if you were this one unique human being that knew everything you needed to know and could do everything that a business needed to do, your day in the life, your cradle to grave process would be the golden flow. When you start, whether it's acquiring a customer or buying a piece of land, whether it's starting the drawing or opening a bid and winning that bid, and whether it's tracking time or job progress or change orders or AIA billing or maintaining retainage so that you can finish the bill at the end. That entire cradle to grave process is what we call the golden flow. And if that golden flow is intact, even if you have to shoot out to another system and come back, that's still part of that golden flow. When we build that golden flow, we know we've built that market. We know that market's been made. Tell me more about the golden flow and how that applies to Appficiency's material job costing product.
Absolutely. So business is business. It doesn't matter if you are a land dev, self-performer, or a designing firm. At the end of the day, the big question always is, I want to make money. I want to be profitable. So in order to be that, you need to have some KPIs. And this is what we can define. So you see the final product, final report, which is tied back to all those great features that we have for construction. So a life of the project starts with having your original contract value. Then you would have some change orders in place. And then this would update your current contract, or we call it adjusted estimate. Then you need to keep an eye on your progress invoices. How much did I bill customer for? You need to now spend the budget in a way that, okay, I need to issue some POs or committed costs, right? And then it's important to know how much I spent on this project. So I committed $100,000 for an item in month of April. Now, how much did they bill me and when they bill me? So that would be technically your spend amount. And now, if you want, we can go even farther. We can say, hey, let us show you how much remaining budget you have in your hand in every of this different period that we can set up. Like we have the MJC periodic budget, and then that will also can help you in terms of understanding how much outstanding invoices you are going to have for each of your period. And then if you want to see all the details, you can go like labor spend, material spend, subcontract, equipment, and most importantly, the profit and loss. What you made and the flexibility that we have around this product is helping us to configure it based on the business needs. Land developers, great example, they don't need to track the labor, material, subcontract because they hire a contractor. What they have usually is hard costs and soft costs. So we can easily define that, and everything is integrated from your budget to your commitment, to your actual cost, to your invoices on the AR side.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Thank you so much. And then lastly, I will ask one sidebar question that wasn't in the script. Tell me about CSI codes. Tell me about this concept of coded costs and coded activities in the construction space. How does that apply to all of this?
So CSI code is the standard specific way of being integrated. So it's a foundation of being integrated. So if you think about comparing your original estimate to the actual cost at any point of time, like the example that I always say is, I want to know how much I lost in month of March. Sure, I can run this report, but I lost $97,000 here, but okay, I learned my lesson. What should I do now for future? CSI code can help you to drill down to this number and see, oh my God, I actually made some money on masonry and I lost some money on concrete. So next time, either I have to be more careful about my estimate on concrete, or I have to technically bid higher. So it will give you the tool that you need in order to find the root cause of the problem. That's the benefit of CSI code that we can also support as part of our product.
Very good. Thank you so much, Murtaza. Last section for us is really, we're not the first ones here in construction. Construction's been around for a long time. If you look around at the beautiful world that we've built, it's full of construction. They're obviously using something. How does that compare? How does that stack up to what Appficiency's done? Have we really made a market, or have we just copied a bunch of features that other people already have?
So you're right. We are not the first. We are not going to be the last. However, with the great foundation that we have with NetSuite, we could technically tackle all the needs that a construction company might need. So if you think about what we just discussed in terms of their needs, you could see CRM, bid management, procurement management. These are all the terms that we were using. Now, the challenge with all the other solutions is they don't have all these features. So wherever you see there is a check mark is missing against each of these great systems and platforms, this means that construction company either has to have a manual process or implement another software, which is not integrated with their main solution, which is huge.
Thanks very much, Murtaza. And we're nearly out of time, but I wanted to close very much by saying this slide to me represents a lot of what NetSuite was originally built for. The one system, no limits, that was a tagline from more than 10 years ago. Today, it's no limits to business at all. And that's what we're trying to do at Appficiency with Making Markets. And with great intelligence about the industries and the way that they operate, we can map that physical world and the day-to-day life that those guys go through to the actual software needs and features. And we create this new market, this new place that people can go to for the full stack of what they need, and not just half of it, not part of it, not punch out to another system and come back. And so thank you very much for your time today. It's very insightful, I'm sure, for everybody here.
Thanks so much, Johnny Morteza. We'll now open it up to the Q&A. We've already had a few questions in the chat. If you want to, feel free to jump in with any questions you have. I will start off with the first question from the chat here. Is NetSuite capable of serving all the different types of construction businesses? And I'll let Hamid or Morteza answer that.
Yeah, for sure. I can take that question. First of all, thank you everyone for joining this webinar today. As far as NetSuite and its capabilities are concerned, one of the best thing about NetSuite is its flexibility and its customizability, essentially. It's a system that is highly customizable and it can be configured to meet the needs of many different kinds of businesses operating in multiple different industries. And construction is basically no exception in this particular instance. A testament to the fact, this particular fact about the flexibility and the customization is Appficiency's construction bundle itself. It is a product that is made on top of NetSuite, and it has the ability to integrate with multiple different solutions as well. So it's a well-rounded product that will be able to cater to the needs of many different businesses within the construction space as well as different industries.
Thanks, Hamid. The next question in the chat is...
Sorry, Spencer, before we go through the next question, I would like to add one more thing to what just Hamid said. That's absolutely right, and I agree with Hamid in terms of what NetSuite is capable of doing. But on the other hand, the other thing that we need to consider is at Appficiency, we have a dedicated construction team who came from working in construction businesses, implementing construction solutions for different types of businesses, that I think at the end of the day, that also played an important part in implementing a software. Having a team who understand or have the common language with the construction companies. So that is huge, and this is what I learned in the past 8 years dealing with different types of construction companies. Number one thing that I always hear is like, software is great, but at the end of the day, the people that we are working with, if they don't understand what are our needs or what are the best practices in the business, then the result wouldn't be as great as we expected. So that's what I wanted to add. So in terms of different types of businesses, if you have a team and a software who can, support you, regardless if you are a GC, a construction manager, or a land dev engineering company, you gotta have a team and software, and you gotta think about both of them at the same time, who are capable of doing what you need.
Awesome. Thanks, Morteza. The next question in the chat is, what is the difference between GC and design build companies in terms of their requirements?
Yeah, I can take that one as well. It's a very, I would say, a question that has been asked quite often, and oftentimes people do confuse between these two different types of businesses. And truly, if we look at how these two businesses operate, it's just a matter of, you could say, vertical integration that plays a role in creating a difference between these two. What I might mean by that is that an owner is someone that might employ a separate design consultancy to work on the design, and then they might have another company or another contractor, essentially a GC, a general contractor, to execute and build that design. Now, when it comes to design build companies, they basically integrate with the designing part as well. So they have the resources that can support the designing and the building or the execution of the project. So that is what I mean by vertical integration, and that's where truly the difference lies. So essentially, if you think about it, their needs and their requirements are not too different. A design build company might have a few extra requirements in order to accommodate their design side of the business as well, whereas a GC might be a bit more simplistic in that nature, as in the sense that they're only managing the construction part and they're executing on the design.
Awesome. So the next question there is, can a land developer act as a home builder?
Yes, absolutely. In fact, I've actually worked with clients who are land developers that also act as home builders. We need to look at it from the perspective that at the end of the day, on paper, when we are describing these different kinds of businesses, there might be very huge differences in terms of the type of companies that they are and their processes. But in reality, the true functionality that they require, there's a lot of overlap happening. What all of these companies and in general businesses also want to look at is the ability to track the project progress, look at the costs, the revenues, and be able to schedule the resources to make sure that they are going according to their project plan, they're making money on it, and they're not actually losing something. So truly, if you look at it from that perspective of how processes and how functionalities work when it comes to a system that accommodates a land developer and a home builder, there's a lot of overlap and they're very similar in nature.
One more thing that I would add, definitely what Hamid said makes sense to me. In terms of the land of and home builders, the way that we should look at it is like uh, a land of company is the owner of the project. In many of the cases, we see um, this type of companies, instead of going and hire a GC to do the work for them, they have actually in-house resources to run the project. And this is the place that you see in some cases the land developers are acting as home builders as well. Um, but at the end of the day, same concept would apply to a GC who is going to do the self-performing work or hire a subcontractor, right? So very similar concept would apply here. Do you want to hire a home builder to do your project, or you want to have in-house resources to run the projects for you or build the projects for you? Majority of the customers that we work with, they try to hire subcontractors, and home builders to a land level could be a subcontractor. But the interesting part that actually NetSuite can help a lot is when you have a division, you have a vertical who is responsible for building the houses within a land of company. Now, kind of having subsidiaries, this would be a very interesting topic to be discussed with NetSuite, because NetSuite is very strong in terms of the intercompany relationship. That's what we also mentioned in the webinar, in terms of the needs for a land of company. Great question, whoever asked that.
Thanks, Morteza. The next question is, how will your solution manage real estate property management and leasing after development if a XYZ company has all the three functions in that company?
Oh, so it seems someone has the full package here. This is quite normal, to be honest with you, with the land of companies, because at the end of the day, land of companies, home builders, they produce homes, right? Now, it's a matter of selling that product to a customer or actually having that in-house and then rent it out to some tenants and so on. We do have lots of land of companies that actually they do that. And the way that it works, what is specific to that aspect of the life, I always say it's the difference between a project and operation. So by the project, when you finish the project, you would have a product, which is your house. And now, if you want to operate the house in terms of renting it, having tenants, now we're talking about the property management aspect of the work. Many of our customers, they would require the CRM. Their needs is now to track, the renting documents, making sure that the maintenance now is going to happen at the right time. And I go back to what Hamid mentioned. NetSuite is a very flexible and customizable solution. So what we did for those type of customers was really designing what they need from their property management aspect, which is not a rocket science, to be honest with you. But I do understand there are some specific needs and requirements for the landed companies if they have this third aspect to their project, which is the property management.
Thanks, Morteza. On that note, I think we will end it here if there's no more questions. We are having a second webinar of this 3-part webinar series on Tuesday, April 26th at 2 to 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That will be a product demo. So we will send the registration link to all of the attendees from webinar number 1. I'd just like to thank everyone so much for coming, and I hope to see you at webinar number 2.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.